Liquorland are proud partners of the debrief, and they have everything you need to gear up for the grand final. I'd imagine the Jumbuck could be getting a fair workout.
Oh, mate, that's going to be the only thing that takes my mind off the actual grand final.
It's going to be bliss. Hopefully you make it to September 25. A bit worried about you, mate.
Yep, I'll be on edge for the next 12 days. It's going to be hard work.
The grand final fever is in the air, and Liquorland has all the new drinks in the lead up to the big day sorted, like Cooper's original Pale Ale bottles. Check it out at liquorland.com.au.
Now we're talking. You bloody love a Cooper's Pale Ale.
I do, mate. One of my go-tos, that's for sure. I'll probably be enjoying a few on grand final day. You can also sign up today to get $10 off your first purchase. For great deals on a wide range of alcohol, go to liquorland.com.au or visit your local store. Please drink responsibly. T's and C's apply. See online for details. Alrighty, let's get the show on the road.
Gawn touched. He would have seen it. Happy to keep rolling. This time Max, the skipper, on the run, around the corner. They've got 8. Demons, first two of the third, and here comes Petrarca again, full of confidence. Handball inside to Gawn. 55 metres, takes out the driver, sets sail for home. Have a look at this, another one for the Demons, it's Max Gawn. He's got 4.
It's unbelievable. You don't see ruckman do this. This is crazy.
Drives it inside again, not Max again. Are you kidding?
Towards the boundary, Dangerfield runs with the trainer, he looks like he's got some issues. Rowan, look at Gawn, kicking goals, laying tackles, has support.
Yeah, I'm ecstatic for this group. It means so much to the supporters, means so much to everyone back in Melbourne who are doing it tough. And yeah, we got staff members back at home, we got family back at home, and this is for them, yeah.
It was close to the perfect night as Melbourne wiped away lingering mental demons against Geelong with an emphatic display that sent the D's fans into delirium and dreaming of a flag in just 12 days' time. Welcome to the official, unofficial podcast of the Melbourne Demons, The Debrief. I'm your host, Adrian Horton, and today I'm joined by Scotty, Toff, and Benny Lee. The A-team is back together. I'm absolutely buzzing. I did a PB for my 12Ks, Toff. I know you're a triathlete, so you'd be impressed with that effort. I think I was doing 4:10, 4:12 average Ks.
Fast.
So pretty fast. I was inspired by the big man Gawny. And I might go to Scotty first, boys, because he's definitely the most emotional of the four of us. He was an absolute wreck leading into the prelim, my big brother. But Scotty, Friday, my friend, was the stuff of dreams.
I'm tearing up again just listening to that start. Far out. Like, what a night. Like, it couldn't have been set up any better. Yeah, what a night. So good. Like, you get the monkey off the back against Geelong, and I said it to you boys off the offset. We deserve this. All of us Melbourne supporters deserve this more than anyone else. I don't care about any other drought for any other club, but everyone out there, and the way that Gawn spoke after the game, and it was for everyone at home and all for the family and that, it means 10 times more. So, yeah, I was emotional. Fuck. And I'm emotional. Every time I see the highlights, I get teary. So it's so good.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Benny Lee, you were emotional as well. I think it hit you 24 hours later or whenever you're watching the replay. You're probably similar to myself. I was kind of just running around like a headless chook. Just, as I said off the top, just absolutely buzzing. But for you, mate, I think it hit you a little bit later.
Yeah, so I during the game, I watched it with my mate Will, who lives down the OC. It was a 2:50 a.m. start for us. So he came up, we played some golf, had dinner, and then went to bed reasonably early after a couple of bottles of wine, just to make sure that we were all settled and we were going to sleep well. And then we got up at 2:50 to watch the game. And I tell you what, I not in my wildest dreams did I think that was going to be the result. I thought we were going to win. I was confident, but I didn't think that, towards the end of the first quarter that I'd be very confident that we were going to win this game and win it by a lot. I don't think I've seen a better performance from a Melbourne team in my life, at least that I can remember. And I think that it was kind of poetic that it was Geelong. I think it almost had to be Geelong. And I think the one stat out of that I really, I guess gravitated to a little bit was that that game we scored the second most points, I think, in a very long time from stoppages, which was, I think we scored 101 or something like that.
Yeah.
The number one scores from stoppages was in 2011 when we played Geelong and they beat us by 186 points. And for me, that loss has always been a bit of a real, it's a real scar tissue. And I think that was probably our lowest ebb as a football club. And I think that preliminary final win almost for me erases it. And I think to me the ledger is now square. And to see the way that we dismantled them and then dismembered them in the third quarter was something that when I've watched the game back a few times now, probably the fourth time I watched it, it was just a bit of an emotional experience. And I couldn't be happier and more proud of the way that they played.
Dismembered. I love that. Toff, you're a man of many words. You've got a very extensive vocab. You're happy with dismembered? Is that what it felt like to you? It was an utter domination. It was unbelievable. How were your emotions during the night?
Really nervous the first half, so much so that I was like, I don't know, just edgy, non-committal, didn't know what we were going to produce in the second half. And then they did what I think we all expected that they would do, which was to beat Geelong. But I don't know, my excitement, my nerves, I feel really level-headed for a change. And I think it's because I know in my heart of hearts that like this Melbourne group is made up differently, and collectively they all have that same drive to be something that's going to be pretty special, I think, not for just this year, but for the years to come. And they can see and feel that they're on the precipice of something really, really remarkable. And I'm confident that if we produce our best, we'll win the grand final. And I say that calmly now, but come fortnight's time, I'm sure I'll be anything but. But we are the better side, and I think we should win the grand final. But, anything can happen on that day. But until then, I'm confident that we've got what it takes on every line, not just the midfield, not just our great back line. On every line, I think we have them covered. And I think they're unsure. I know they'll go in feeling like they are the underdog, which is great. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be big. I actually enjoy the fact, even though it probably helps the Bulldogs a little bit more because they've got some lingering injury concerns. They've obviously played the extra game as well, taking the long route to the granny. But I'm kind of happy that we're not rolling into it this coming weekend, so we can savour the moment, enjoy the prelim win, and then we get this slow build-up, which is going to feel like forever. But I'm kind of happy that that's happening at the moment this week. There's a few other people. Scotty's shaking his head at me. He's obviously not enjoying it. He just wants to get into it and put himself out of his misery. But, well, hopefully it's not misery, Scotty. Hopefully it's pure joy. But I don't mind it. Like, I need a little bit of time to just settle. I need some time to do some work and actually pull my weight around the house. My wife is pretty angry with me at the moment because I've just
You need to study your coffee machine first, You need to work that out, I reckon.
I can't figure out the coffee machine, so we just got a new one, and I've put the pot in the right way, and then every single time I do it, it just decides to not work, and it's just spitting out water instead of coffee. And then what happens? Fee comes downstairs or comes from the lounge room, walks in, puts a pot in. It works every time. What am I doing wrong?
If you can't work out a pod machine, you've got some serious issues.
Boys, we're talking about the bloke who burnt Maggi 2-minute noodles, like nearly burnt down our homestead up at Walmatta. Like, just an absolute nuffy when it comes to any household chore. Can podcast, that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it.
Domestically, he's the worst.
Can dance as well.
She said she married the wrong Horton, so...
Toff's seen me out. I can dance, Toff. I got some decent moves as well, but that's about the extent of it. So luckily I've got this outlet, Scotty. But anyway, what I was trying to say was I've just been frozen with apprehension and frozen with nervousness in the past fortnight. So I'm actually enjoying the fact that for this week, at least this week, I can just get back to a little bit of normality. I don't have to look too far ahead about the doggies and the granny. But just on that quickly before we dissect the game in detail, and what we're going to do today, boys, is we're actually going to go through every single player. I think every single player deserves a mention. Yes, we'll indulge about some of our stars in a little bit more detail, but every single player out on that field on Friday night deserves a mention. So that's what we're going to do. But I'll ask Benny the question because it is very topical. This has never happened in the AFL era before. The 2 weeks before the granny, I kind of alluded to it. I think that it's probably going to benefit the Bulldogs a little bit more than us, but should we read into it all? Do you think Burjo will just set up the same plan as he did coming into the prelim? What are your thoughts about it? Because it is a new thing for this era.
Yeah, look, I think because it's new, we don't really know. So I have absolute faith in the way that our coaching staff and our fitness staff and our medical staff prepared our team to play in that prelim. So I don't see why they can't do it again. It remains to be seen whether that extra game will be an advantage to the Bulldogs or a disadvantage. But for me, I think that it's something that's outside of our control, so we shouldn't be worrying about it too much. I think that the other thing is that if Stephen May didn't get injured, I would have a very different viewpoint on it. I think I would like him to have as much time as possible to recover because I know they get Keith and Waitman back, but I think May is more important to us than both those players. To them.
Yep, I would totally agree with that. I think that's the biggest blessing in disguise about it for sure. Let's get into it, and I'll come to Toff. We need to start with Max Gawn. It'd be remiss of us not to talk about him as the first player. 5 goals, dominant, turned in one of the great individual performances. I think statistically, since they started doing champion data, they said that the third quarter was the highest rated quarter ever, which is just absolutely outrageous. There are a few commentary teams, I think Triple M even said that Max Gawn was taking the absolute piss. He was. It was ridiculous. I'd never really seen anything like it from a bloke that stands at 208 centimetres. Wasn't it fitting that it was Max as well, Toff? A guy that's seen the dark times, a bloke that took a long time to get going in his career, but the rapid transformation of Max Gawn in the last 6 years is absolutely outrageous. If not for injury in 2017, we're probably talking about a 6-time consecutive All-Australian. He's a phenomenon, and he's going to go down as a Demons great if he can lift the cup in a fortnight's time.
Ditto, 100%. I think you, as a Melbourne supporter, even though he's just a footballer, but you find that he's been, he said Nathan Jones is the reason that Melbourne turned and that the culture changed and the personnel, importantly, had, improved. Like, he's been there for all that shit, and he's grown through all that stuff. And, like, now that he's getting to see the fruits of his labour, like, literally, in our, not just an individual sense, which he's been doing for, 7 years consistently, but also just to be on the end of it. And, like, I think you're just seeing Gawn's potential now because he's got the support cast around him to be able to do what he does. It's like just the perfect storm of timing where his body's probably at its peak. Scotty, you'd know, being a ruck mate. I'll just sort of give you that one. And
you got one, Scotty.
And his footballing ability is probably at its all-time best as well. His mind, he's like, it's just timing. And Melbourne just having to have the best midfield, being able to tap it to Petrarca and Oliver and Viney, it's great. And you have to give him all the credit because he deserves it. And that performance was like nothing I'd ever seen on a footy field. And to do it in a prelim against Geelong with all the history, like, Max Gawn deserved that moment. And I think if he lifts the Premiership Cup, I love Nader, but I think, like, it's the right person holding the cup in that moment for what he's contributed to Melbourne and will continue to do.
Yeah, it was Wanturna South last quarter in the granny, 2014. Scotty Horton had an absolute stinker. I don't think Wani had even kicked a goal up until three-quarter time.
I hope if anyone that's listening right now, you just have to look at Benny's face and where his hand is on his head for this one. Keep going.
No, so the idea is just before we jumped on air.
Don't throw me under the bus.
Throw him under the bus. Throw him under the bus.
Are you ready?
Throw him under the bus.
Are you ready? You're getting...
I didn't get to pot him about his thanks to the tips team.
I wasn't going to talk about
shameless
myself
name
this
dropping.
podcast.
Shameless name dropping.
I wasn't going to go down the normal route I go and bring up my past footballing career.
Well, I'm bringing it up for you, Scotty. So you're getting a taste of your own medicine here. So it wouldn't be a Monday pod without referencing your amateur football career. So
B grade.
You in that up until three-quarter time, I think you were down by something like 35 points. You're absolutely gone. You're playing Templestowe. I was with my good mate Heusler, and we were watching it, and we were like, Heusler was just giving you so much shit. He was like, Scott's shit. Why are we here? We should just leave. And you went full Max Gawn, Scotty, and you turned it all around. You're inspiring. Somehow, I think you kicked 7 goals to zip in the final quarter and won by 8 or 9 points. And it was one of the great quarters of suburban footy I've ever seen. But we won't do Max Gawn a disjustice, and we won't compare him to you because that's real bottom floor from us. So we'll just leave it at that. Scott, let's talk about Christian Petrarca.
Before we talk about track, can we say a couple of things though? I think
you can.
Look, I think Gawn, I personally think that Gawn is where he is as a leader because of Nathan Jones, because of what Jonesy showed him how to do and how to lead. And I think if you ask Max Gawn that, I think he'd say the same thing. So for me, like we'll talk about Jonesy probably later on, but I think just to cap that off, I think that what we're seeing now is years of development, and I think that their growth as leaders, albeit a few years after the other, is quite similar. Like going from like a player who's an individual and who is about themselves to a person who is the ultimate team man and the ultimate clubman and truly an inspirational leader. So for me, I think that you can't say that Max Gawn has become a great leader without mentioning Nathan Jones.
Yeah, 100%. And there's another special mention, and then I'll jump to you, Scotty, and we'll talk about track. But it probably got lost on a few people over the weekend, and it was great to see Michael EJ, a special mention to you, who's a loyal listener of this podcast and has been ever since we started it, boys. And he's a great fella, and he absolutely loves Lord Nev. And Neville Jetta is a player that unfortunately was at the crossroads in his career. He got delisted and then he got rookied, and ever since that point he never looked back. And he's someone as well that's been displaced by this side because of all this exciting talent that's come through and cemented their spot in the team. And Lord Nev epitomises what the D's are all about. He's heart and soul as well, and he never took a backward step in his career. And age has caught up with him in the same way that it's caught up with Jonesy. So we can't forget about Lord Neville and the efforts that he's gone to and the way that he's been able to mentor some of these younger kids, especially some of the Indigenous boys as well. Just a great man, a leader in his own community, and no doubt he's had a big impression on the footy club as well. So I think it's also worth mentioning Neville Jetta and the impact that he's having down at the club and has done for a long time. But Scotty, track, we finally got there. Involved in 5 goals himself. He had 4 goal assists and kick 1. Probably should have kicked 3, Toff. We always say that every week. But 32 disposals. He was so clean. Only the 2 turnovers, 8 clearances. Scotty, the ruck work in there was exceptional, but the way that Petrarca roved it and was so clean with his hands, I almost found that more impressive than his actual kicking. I thought his handballing was just first class.
Yeah, the connection between that midfield group is elite. Like the way that Clary and Track just wax on, wax off is unbelievable. And we saw it. Like they're so powerful. I was talking to a couple of boys from work this morning. It's those first 2 power steps that they both take. They just burn people out of the contest. And Oliver does it better than most now. He always used to go the quick handball, Clary. Now he takes that 2 steps and they're 5-10 feet out of the contest. And you can't tackle them. Like Petrarca is an absolute bull. And Toff and I were carrying on a couple of years ago how good this kid is. He's now there. And he's still as good as his game was. He missed those easy set shots. So there's still another level to go to. And I don't know who the guy is that always complains about me saying the 4 quarters of footy. that wasn't 4 full quarters on Friday night. It was nearly, but it wasn't. So there's probably half a quarter there or moments in the first and second quarter where, and even the last bit where we were conserving it, but there's still a 4-quarter performance in us. And Track was just, he was electric. It's Will's favourite player, so Will loves him. And every time he touches the ball, I know he's got it because Will's screaming at the TV.
Imagine he kicks those goals though.
Yeah.
Oh, and it puts him in another stratosphere, Toff. Like,
so frustrating.
No
though,
disrespect to Dusty, but this guy's fucking weight. Like, I think he's way better.
Oh,
and that's just me being.
He's a more complete. He's a more complete footballer because he can play. He can play in. He can play out. Like,
and he can play forward.
But he's a better mark.
Yeah.
Like, question wise, like, you maybe say, oh well, Dusty's maybe the better kick, but I think Track impacts is, if you're looking in categories of what's elite, I think Track has him covered for just as many now. If you can do it as consistently.
Yeah,
he's got the biggest stage. We've been talking about it. He's got the biggest stage to do it.
Well, he needs some norms.
How's the goose step? The goose step in that running into the square there in the first quarter, that was elite.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. But he needs some norms and he needs some flags if he's going to get himself into that conversation. It's there for him. It's there for him. If he wants to go and take that mantle and be compared to Dustin Martin, then
he's being compared to Dustin Martin now. That comparison's already happening. The football world has been doing it for 12 months, but everyone was saying, "Oh, Melbourne." It's like, here we are.
Here we are. Exactly, Toff. Well said.
That quarter that Gorney did was better than any quarter that Dusty's done in his whole career. And Gorn's 6 foot taller than him.
I don't know
about that. I don't know about that. Yeah.
Nah, I back it. He's a ruckman. Don't care about short blokes.
Yeah, fair enough. Jack Viney, let's get to him. He's third cab off the rank. We've got a long way to go. We'll probably bundle a few in together, boys, because we can't be here forever. But Jack Viney, 34 disposals, 16 contested, 9 score involvements, 9 clearances, 578 metres gained as well, which is big for Jack Viney. And the thing I loved about him, boys, the yap. Just going at blokes, just absolutely giving it, just being the biggest pest of all time. And it was completely justified because not only was Jack Viney having a ripper game, but the side was performing on all cylinders. So when a bloke goes around yapping, getting stuck into the opposition, I only like it, boys, when it's completely and utterly vindicated, and it was on Friday night. It was awesome, wasn't it, Toff?
How good was it for the first time? Like, I think Viney, like, just quickly, just in my head, when I think of Viney, I think of him being an 18-year-old kid and Wojcinski at Geelong breaking his jaw. And then, then the year goes by and then we get done by Geelong by however many points. And then you think, like, Jack then being who he was and then where he is now in that moment and how, like, it's just like, nah, this is where we've arrived. Geelong, you're done. See ya. And he would have just been embracing that moment, knowing that we have the players and that, like, Geelong's a good side, and we just made them look shit. And, like, Selwood, Dangerfield, honestly, like, that was
That was my highlight. That was my highlight.
But Viney being in their ear and letting them know, like, that's the stuff that you love to see as a supporter. Some people get offsided by it, but when you're a good side, like, you need to tell other good sides, like, hey, how good are we? Like, and they need to hear it. And Geelong needed to hear it because their egos have been up here since 2011 and they've done nothing. Like, Chris Scott, catch you later. Melbourne.
I'm with you, Toff. I'm with you. I might indulge in that point a little bit further, so I'll throw these ones at you, boys. So this is on the Geelong side. It was their third biggest loss since 2007. It was their biggest ever prelim loss. It was their biggest ever loss to Melbourne, and it was their second. I sound like a New Zealander. It was their second biggest finals loss as well. You talk about owing Geelong, come back to Benny's point, and just how we just wiped away all of those mental scars from the 186-point beating down at the Cattery. Those stats just speak to a club that had redemption on their mind and actually bundled in the history of being embarrassed by Geelong and going, you know what? Fuck this. We're going to absolutely wipe the floor with this mob. And I said it on the Thursday pod with the other boys. We've never owed a team more in terms of those mental scars that they have created. And
100%.
it was so sweet for me. And I know people get annoyed that I keep banging on about it. I go down to the Cattery every year. And the one year that I missed happened to be the year where Zach Tui kicked the goal after the Sirens. Thank God I wasn't there. I was at a Deloitte ball and I was watching the phone just off to the side, and Fee caught me and got really angry with me, and then we lost at the end, and I didn't talk to anyone else at the ball for the last 3 hours, and I was in a lot of strife, boys. But, Geelong, it just, from a personal perspective for every Melbourne supporter, and I know Geelong fans probably think we're talking out our ass when we talk about a rivalry or trying to manufacture something that's not really there. They've obviously got Hawthorn and Sydney and other clubs that they tend to hate, and they kind of pity us in a way, and that's the way they've always looked at us. But in the last 4 seasons, boys, we've gone toe-to-toe with them, and we've said, you know what, we're going to start standing up for ourselves as a group. And for Melbourne to beat Geelong 3 times in a season, a lot of people are going, oh, it's not good that you got them twice in the season. Now you've got them in the final. They're going to come out hard. They're going to breathe a bit of fire. That's actually going to work as a disadvantage for you blokes. To smash them 3 times in a year, boys, after the dust settled, just thinking about that was just so pure for all Melbourne supporters, because they have beaten up on us for many, many years. Benny?
Yeah, and look, I think that one of the things going into the game which actually made me really calm was how much they were talking in the media about us in a negative sense. Like Isaac Smith saying they could have won it by 10 goals in the round 23. Chris Scott saying, why are you talking about Melbourne's defence when you should be talking about our forwards? All that type of stuff, right? It said to me that they were worried, that they needed to change the narrative, that they need to play the mind games. We never did that. Goodwin just said we respect them. We're ready for a tight contest, and that's what we're looking forward to. And I think that for me, with Geelong, they do have an air of arrogance about them, and particularly towards Melbourne. I think that a lot of their efforts after round 23 were around like trying to, I guess, change the narrative about that comeback. If you think about that comeback, right? So we basically destroyed them for a quarter and a half, or less than a quarter and a half in that game, right? And we eclipsed the margin they built up on us. They were trying to do everything they could to change the narrative around that, because that's really the form line you wanted to look at. It's like when Melbourne get their game going, Geelong have no answers. And that is exactly what transpired in the prelim. They had no answers. And in fact, in the first quarter, my friend who is a keen Cats supporter sent a message. He said, this game is done. We've got no answers for you. This is going to be a whitewash. And I said, I don't know. There's still a long time to go. He's like, I've not seen us get dominated like this in a very long time. And it was kind of eerily similar to that 2018 prelim, that first quarter in the 2018 prelim, except I think it was more emphatic on the weekend.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Scotty, we'll keep going and we'll get stuck into a few other players. We'll go to Christian Salem, someone that we've spoken about as the quarterback, very important to our team. He's been freed up now because Jake Bowie's a little gun himself. He had 29 disposals. He had the most metres gained on the field. He was so composed with the ball in hand. And then the other thing I always like to talk about with Christian Salem, which I don't think gets highlighted enough, is he's got some genuine mongrel bastard. Like, he goes in hard, Scotty, and he loves a tackle. I thought his performance was superb. I know he probably won't get as many plaudits as some of the other blokes, but he was right up there for me.
I'm happy for him to go under the radar, and they forget about him. Salem's a jet. The composure that he showed when he gathered that ball when it got kicked out of our 50, and then he sort of just he held the ball for like 3 seconds before he got rid of it, and then dropped it inside to Charlie Spargo. So, no, the guys are gone, and it just sets us up off that half back. I think it was complemented with not only Bowie, but the Hibberd replacement was justified. Hibbo was fantastic as well. So you probably bundle that into this chat and knock Hibbo off the list. But yeah. Hibbo was fantastic. But that whole defensive back three out of those two small to medium backmen, they were phenomenal all night. And I was critical of Bowie. Not critical, but I thought we might bring in Hunt for pace, and I was worried that Bowie wouldn't stand up in the heat of the game. That kid just absorbed everything that came at him. He didn't look out of place. He looked like he was a 150-game player, not a 7-game player. So I'm so happy for him as well. So the coaches will know way more than us.
Like in
Never.
any of these games?
Never.
He's looked on point the whole time. I think Hunt, if anything, would be more of a concern with his willingness, ball in hand, to make clap out decisions. Like Bowie's just first option, bang, hands. Like if the kick's on, I'm going to hit that up. Like, and he has vision that Hunt doesn't have, and poise. Like adding to your point, I just think Bowie's like, what a friggin' revelation. Like, I mean, it's incredible, really. Like a guy that's played how many games, and he looks like he's, as you said, played 150. Like it's
only 7 games, and he's just. But he's but he's also undersized, Top. Like he's undersized. He's a ranger, which we love. So he's downtrodden, like our good mate, buddy Josh Rawling. Rawlo loves him. Rawlo absolutely loves him. And Rawlo was pissed off that I said that he could go out for Hunt, but he's just got every great attribute that a player needs. He just doesn't look out of place. He plays tall for such a bloke who's so small. Like
but Caleb Daniels like the same. You know, he's
better. This kid's going to be better than Caleb Daniels.
I think so too, Scotty. But jumping onto someone else, Rivers. Are we concerned about Rivers? Like I thought, the last few weeks he's looked a little worried at the contest and been less Rivers-like.
Takes him a bit to work into it. I think he gets better as the game goes on. Yeah. I know what you mean. He started a little bit shaky, but he came in, and I think Dogger did as well, to be honest. Dogger sort of was a bit overawed by the start, and then he got going. But they've been there now, Toff. They've played this prelim. They've jumped that hurdle. They've played 2 finals now. They should just take all confidence going into a granny.
For sure. Like you can't – I honestly think there's not a player that we could fault in that team. I think for me, like Bowie, the reason why I like Bowie over Hunt was summed up very early on in the game. And I think it was I think Brayshaw might have tapped the ball to him. He gathered the ball like on the wing, had no space, very little time, and he absolutely nailed a kick. I think it was to Cozzy potentially, on the half forward flank. And like Hunt's just not going to do that. And like I like Jaden Hunt, I like the run he brings, but like the simple fact is that the ball moves faster than feet. So if you've got a guy who can kick accurately, like 40, 50 meters, that's just as valuable as someone who can run really fast too. And I think that I was concerned about like the speed against Brisbane, some of their smaller forwards, but that was never an issue. So I personally think that like we go in unchanged, these young kids, we back them in that we have all year. Yeah. And look, every time we say like, oh, we're concerned about this person, should they get a rest? They normally turn it on the next week. They'll basically go back up to what their median or mean performance is. So, look, I tend to think that, like, not everyone is going to have the best game every game, but I think that's as close to what on the weekend, that's as close to what we're going to see.
Yeah, it was an even spread.
Those smaller defenders were great. Like, they blanketed Geelong. Their small forwards did nothing. They couldn't apply pressure. So what more do you ask for, right? Like, we just took the game away from them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Bowie, I just want to back up your point quickly, Benny. I was the same. So within, I think, maybe 5 minutes tops in that first quarter, I think I texted Scotty and Richie and Roller, and I just said, Bowie. It was the first player I picked out. It was the first player I picked out and went, wow. Because it comes back to Scott's point. We were a little bit worried. Will this kid get overawed? Should we bring in Jaden Hunt because he's played more games? Well, the whole games experience thing went out the window immediately. It was like, oh, wow, this kid's just set for the big stage. He's just taking it in his stride. And that first 5 minutes, he was so composed. And from that point onwards, I was just like, I got no issues with Jake Bowie. He's going to have an absolute ripper, and he did. He had 19 touches. He was everywhere. And I loved how he just jumped at the ball and made a contest when he looked like, it was David and Goliath, and he was on a player that was 20 centimetres taller than him. But he just put himself in the contest and just affected it. It was so good to watch. So
the whole team just played great. Like they were having fun. There was only maybe 2, like Toff said about Riv, like they all just looked like they were having an absolute ball, and every goal was celebrated, and it was measured. It wasn't over the top. It was just, it looked like a group of 22 blokes that were just out there having an absolute ball and playing.
I'm gonna get Neil Bullien's number on my on my on my Melbourne jersey, I reckon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a turnaround of what were you calling it? The arse slapper, the arse slapper.
He's the number one. He's the number one link-up player for Melbourne, in my opinion. He's the Lynch. Every scoring. If you looked at all our scores, I'd love to see how many times Neil Bullen had his hand on it. He was also really good for whatever it was. His 15, 20 touches he would have got. I found all of them were impactful, and he's very, very, very underrated one-on-one player now. No, well, not now. Maybe all the time. Maybe that's what I've never seen. But yeah, he's been instrumental in our success, and guys like that need to get some serious plaudits for standing up in key moments in games that they may not, because it's the Petrarcas and the Olivers that tend to finish the work, but he was really important. And then going to 80's point again, just our 17 to 22, you look at Sparrow, you look at Jordan. Jordan came on and had 9 posies in a quarter.
Yeah,
it's crazy that you've just got this depth, and that you look in the coach's box, not coach's box, our players that are there, and you look at the guys that are sitting there that won't be playing in the grand final and think, wow, this is an amazing level of growth across the board. And Harmsy also, just while we had another player in there, he still had a great game in key moments.
He did.
And yeah, it's crazy.
It is crazy. And there's also a few other players that we've got to get through that had ripping games as well. So we'll talk about the Wingers Club, Ed Langdon and Angus Brayshaw. The two of them were absolutely superb. And the thing I loved about them, and we've been saying it all season long, boys, is just the defensive work rate of both players. There are a few moments when Geelong were in attack and they had a 3v2 and they had the advantage and the overlap and the extra man there. And all you'd ever see during the night was Ed Langdon and Brayshaw just getting back and just making sure that they plugged up the holes or put a little bit of pressure on and affected a kick or affected a handball. They were always there. And the moment for Gus with me was, I can't remember which quarter. It might have been the second quarter, actually, where Isaac Smith looked like he was completely out and Gus just foiled him and then got the ball going the other way. And he's kicking as well. There's a beautiful kick down the line to Ben Brown who clunked it. And it was a cleaner Gus, and a Gus that we've been critical of his kicking because he looks a little bit lackadaisical, and sometimes he just lazily will swing around on the left foot and just throw it on the boot. But he looked a lot more considered in his approach. But Ed Langdon's link-up play as well was just a joy to watch. So those two, again, we talk about system all the time. Those boys play such an important role for us. They're going to be critical against the Doggies because the Doggies, probably their biggest strength is their outside run and their ball use once they get the ball out in space. They've got exquisite skills. We know they're a better skilled team than us when it just purely comes down to the way that they move the ball and how they can hit up targets. So for me, Gus and Langers going into that game in the grand final are going to be pivotal. So they were awesome. We haven't even spoken about Clayton Oliver. He does it every week. He had 27. He had the most tackles for the D's with 7. Funnily enough, boys, it was almost like a slightly down game for Oliver. But if you look at his stat sheet, it was still a phenomenal performance if you isolate it for any, general player in the AFL. And that's a good thing about the weekend as well, the even spread. Like Clary, we know he's an exceptional footballer. He's arguably the best player for us against the Lions. So Clary, he's had a magnificent season. He might win the Brownlow. But he was only ever so slightly down on form, yet it had no difference to the overall balance and output of the team. And that's what we keep talking about every single week. Everyone's buying in. 1 week it'll be Gorm popping up, getting bogged. 1 week it'll be Oliver. 1 week it'll be Salem. 1 week it'll be T-Mac. 1 week it'll be Lever. But they don't really give a shit, just as long as the spread across the board with all of our players is there. And that's what wins you games of footy. So it was a really selfless performance. But the player that I need to isolate, boys, he's only just starting to get the love from the external media. He's only just starting to get the love from opposition supporters as well. It's finally come for him, and he couldn't deserve it more because he's pint-sized, he's a midget, he can hardly kick more than 40, 45 metres. But Charlie Spargo, 18 disposals, the 2 goals, and he went at 95%. He was arguably the cleanest player on the field. I talk about him being high impact. That was one of his best games for the club for me, and I just love his attitude. When he kicks a goal, he's just so nonchalant. He's like, yeah, whatever, let's get on with it. Back to the centre. Spargy, I'm a big rap for his, and I think Charlie Spargo deserves to be spoken about the way he is now from all the other people that are outside the Melbourne bubble. He was awesome, Scotty.
So good. Your mate, the mate that rolled his eyes at you.
Well, he's changed his form ever since then.
Meet one day. He'll remember that, I reckon. That's a changing point in his whole career, that moment when he saw you at the top of the race. So what a kid. What a jet. Like, to be, and it's the same as Bowie. Like, it's those blokes that typically get overlooked in the drafts because they're trying to draft athletes like a Smith or whoever it might be. But the kid, and my father-in-law pots him all the time. Nah, he's no good. Bring Nate Jones in. And my father-in-law is a good friend of Nathan. So he's biased. But Charlie Spargo, every time he gets the ball, I feel calm. I'm like, oh, this is going to turn out in a goal. And even when he picked it up to snap that ball, the first or second goal he kicked, it was just, that's in. Like, he's just clinical. And the kid, and I love the demeanour. I love how he just doesn't get overawed by it all. Like, he's a calmness in that forward line. But then you've got that mosquito fleet around him, Cozzy, Neil Bullen. Like, everyone reckons we're not that good going forward. We're charged ready for this grand final with those three. Like, I'd be paying way more respect to those players, and I hope they don't, because they'll get off the chain again. You put Fritter into that list as well. Like, that four medium small size forwards, they're electric for us, and they're not the big names. They're not everyone's pumping up this Cody Waitman. They're not the Charlie Camerons of the world. They just get shit done. Like, They're just the working class, blue collar, get it done. Don't need the accolades. They're just perfect for us.
Yep.
I don't think I could describe Cozzy as blue collar ever.
Oh, not Cozzy. He's on another level. I had the shirt on Friday night, and I was going nuts when he kicked a couple of those goals. I had the top off, and I was just going berserk.
Yuck.
Yeah, no, it's not a good sight at the minute. But
I wouldn't have wanted to see that. I'm glad I wasn't watching it with you. That would have been probably made me physically ill.
I was nuts, mate. I had the emotion of it, and everyone knows, like, 2 weeks of building into this. And then I had a moment of calm, like a couple of hours out from the game, and I was feeling good. And Kelly's like, what's wrong with you? You're normally, like, shitting yourself. And then got to the game, and I've been wearing this stupid moon boot, and I couldn't wear it. My foot was sweating, and I'm sitting on the edge of the couch. When Ben Brown, like Cozzy, that first chain of play, and Cozzy lit it up, and that delivery into Brown was like the best kick I've ever seen. I went berserk, jumped off the bloody couch, and Benny missed it, and I frigging hurt my foot again. So, mate, I rode every bump in that game for the first quarter, and I didn't really get the anxiety didn't leave me until probably midway through, or 5 minutes into that third quarter. So it's so
that's a good segue, Scott, into our 2 key forwards. So I think, look, people will say that, T-Mac didn't have his best game, and that's probably true, but I think he still played an important role. Like, as I've been saying all along, like, key forward is not necessarily meant to just take marks and kick goals. It's also about providing a contest and allowing our smaller players and bringing them into the game. I think when he had his moment to kick a goal, he took it, and that was a very, very nice goal. But I want to spend a bit more time on Ben Brown, something that I've been very critical of. And I think after he did his little mini preseason, since he's come back into the team, he's done everything we were asking him to do. And I think the way he played on the weekend, that would worry the Bulldogs. The way he was marking the ball, particularly in that first quarter and the first half, and moving as well. Like, the amount of
he had lateral. He chased, which Benny, sorry to jump in. I'll let you go. But he chased, and that was, like, for me, such a big thing to see him go. Not 1 effort, but 2 effort, but 3 effort. Like, it's good to see. Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, the hands were immense, weren't they? He clunked everything that came near him.
Yeah, and that to me, like, with when they've got their key defender, Alex Keith, coming off an injury, and all of our key forwards are aerobic animals, that could come into play a little bit. They're not all stay-at-home forwards. These guys get out in the lead, get up the ground, they push up, push back, let's just see how Keith goes against someone like that. Like Charlie Dixon, traditionally, I don't think he's like Ben Brown. I don't think he's like Tom McDonald or Luke Jackson for that matter. And then you throw Max Gawn into the equation, and it's like when he goes rest forward, it's going to be interesting to see how their two, I guess, key forwards play ours as well. So I don't know. I think Brown was exceptional. I was incredibly pleased with his game.
Yep.
And I think, look, if he keeps playing like that, he will stay in that team as long as he can keep playing. That's all I want out of him. And look, I think
we didn't think it'd work, Benny. We thought he was too one-dimensional and we couldn't kick. And now we're an elite kicking side, and he's taking marks in deep 50. Like, we've turned it all around.
So I'm going to get overly analytical here, but I don't know if you guys.
That's not like you, mate.
I know. I noticed something, and I don't know if it was a directive, but it certainly was very apparent to me. When I think Geelong basically expected us to kick long a lot, and particularly going in forward, so they were dropping off a lot.
Yeah.
But I noticed that our players were lowering the eyes and hitting up leading targets. Our forwards were presenting. It's something we haven't really done much this year. We've traditionally just gone long to the contest and tried to like lock it in and crumb it. But it's like there was a change. It was like that Goodwin, I'm going to give him the credit for it, was like, okay, so they're going to expect us to do this. But what we're going to have to do is our forwards are going to have to be leading up and our midfields are going to be needing to hit those targets. So let's try and do that. And it worked to devastating effect, particularly in the first half. It just looked like they were like that. They thought we were going to go long and deep every time, as they were dropping off and ignoring our leading forwards coming at the ball. And it was a really, really smart move because we haven't done that against Geelong the last couple of times we played them. It was a little change, a subtle tweak, and it was very noticeable to me.
Yep, I agree, Benny. It was awesome to watch. Now, a couple of plays we haven't mentioned, boys, and then I'm going to actually play you a poem that a Melbourne supporter.
Poem.
Yes, a Melbourne supporter has sent it in, and it's absolutely beautiful, and we're going to listen to it, have a short break, and then when we come back, we've got some social responses to quickly wrap up. But the last two players, boys, that we haven't mentioned...
Three.
There might be two. I'll go with the first couple. They both play in defence. So Harrison Petty, he's on the big man. He's on the big man, Tom Hawkins, who apparently had a virus.
That pisses me off.
Shut up.
What a bunch of
Scotty.
wankers.
Have a laugh.
No. Look,
fucking hell, I've set him off.
Let them say what they want to say.
I know.
That's fine. It's nothing to do with us. They can say what they want to say. If it's true, it's true. If it's not true, shame on them.
Scotty, don't get
carry
triggered.
Carry on, 80. Carry on.
Thank you, Benny. Scotty, don't get triggered. Be calm. It was just
triggered me.
It was just a little
I'm triggered.
Just a little jab at the Cats and our man Tom Hawkins, who's forgotten his Finley roots. Anyway, Harrison.
Your mate.
Yeah, my mate who kicked friggin' 8 or 9 goals on me in the Force.
Not about your amateur career. Career. Let's talk about our players.
No, I'm just telling you, I played the man when he was a man-child, when he was 13 years old, and he absolutely torched me. It was ridiculous. I'm talking about bad memories, Scott. Okay, so Harrison Petty, we've spoken about his performances since he came in for Tomo. He's been a revelation. We talk about Sparrow. We'd love to talk about the rise of Luke Jackson in his second season. But Harrison Petty's in the same category. He has to be, because he's come in under circumstances that were unfortunate at the time, and they still are. Adam Tomlinson was in almost career best form. I think he'd only lost one one-on-one contest in the past 12 months of footy or something ridiculous like that. So Harrison Petty comes in, has to fill what was a very big void at the time, and he's done it with aplomb. His last 6 to 8 week block has been tremendous. And for him to do a role and to do a job on Tom Hawkins, the big power forward of the competition, was just so good to see. And he likes the physical contact. I was watching some footage on First Crack, the pod with Montagna, King and Morris, and it was awesome to see what Harrison Petty was doing off the ball, the way he was bullocking Tom Hawkins, and he wasn't afraid to put a bit of body on. Most defenders are worried about putting body on with someone like Tom Hawkins. This bloke doesn't give a shit. He absolutely loves it, and he revels in it like a proper country boy. So Harrison Petty, I'm all for him. I'm loving his form. Some say he's flying under the radar, but not for me. I'm seeing it firsthand every single week, what he's putting up. The next player, boys, is my man, my new favourite player. I'm going to get the royal blue jumper this week. I'm getting number 8 on the back, Jake Lever. The spoil toward the end of the game, where he got in front of Hawkins and Petty and spoiled it and helped his man and came off his opponent. Just typified what Jake Lever's all about. And then I love just the little high five with the supporter in the crowd, just the connection between the club. And Jake Lever, love the way he speaks, love the way he conducts himself, love the way he marshals the defence. It was just a pretty typical, stock standard, awesome Jake Lever performance. We're just so used to it every single week. I don't think he ever lets us down, boys. So I was wrapped with his performance, and he had the
last one.
And the last one. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What is the last one, Benny? Who is it?
Stevie May.
Oh, Stephen. Yes, talk to us, Benny. What are you thinking about old Stevie, mate?
Oh, I mean, it was pretty cool how he won, like, literally without him. So, I mean, look, he played his role when he was on the ground, got injured, went off, came back on, which I think was really important, to be honest, to take that risk. It would have been hard for him to do that. I think he was quite upset when he came off the ground, but I think in himself he knew he could at least play some, and I think when we got in front, it was smart to sub him off. And then for me, at the end there, now that we've talked about all the players, seeing our All-Australians just sitting on the bench, lapping it up, I think was really, really nice and one of my favourite moments from the game. The other favourite moment I had was not any of the goals we kicked, was when we were 70 points up at this time. They had a deep forward entry and Petty, Hibberd, Brayshaw were scrambling on the line to stop them from kicking a goal. And I think it was Petty who smothered Brian Myers and we took the ball away.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me typifies why I think this Melbourne team is made of different stuff. It's because they could have easily just been like, oh, bugger this, that we could concede this goal, but they did not want Geelong to score. And that sort of ruthlessness that we've experienced from other teams is now something that's part of our DNA, which I think holds us in great stead going into the couple of weeks in the grand final. It's all those little things. Max's chase down tackle, all those little things,
everything
that make a team like ours successful. It's the little things. It's not necessarily the show stuff. It's the little things.
Yep. No, I'm with you. We've got some great social responses that we're going to whip through, but we're going to have a quick break, boys. We're going to listen to a poem from, his name is John English. He was born in 1957, so he was only 7 for the last flag in 64. Put yourselves on mute, boys, and we'll go out to the break and have a little listen to this.
So I'm sitting in my lounge room, perched on the couch, watching the D's smack the Cats. Ouch, ouch, ouch. That Christian Petrarca, he's no slouch. Watch him pickpocket a Sava's pouch. Now Maxi Gawn, he's long and he's lean. And below his knees he is super clean. Is he the best ruckman that we've ever seen? And Jack Viney, he's tough and he's mean. He won't die wondering what might have been. Now the other footy teams, we don't want to demean, but the D's are so good, it's bloody obscene. Everyone's on board. Everyone is keen. This team's on the march and you know what I mean. Has the time finally come? The flag is there to seize. You can feel the tempest coming, smell it on the breeze. Winners go again, losers do what they please. The new era's coming and cometh the D's.
While we take a break from talking about the D's, Liquorland has been there for Melbourne supporters, from wooden spoons to finals wins. If you have the grand final fever every weekend in the lead up to the big day, and you don't want to be caught unprepared, Liquorland has you covered for those last minute drinks. Get free 30-minute click and collect from your local store and relax knowing that your drinks are sorted. September 25, Melbourne and the Doggies.
Mate, you don't need to remind me. It's all we're talking about. It's all we're thinking about.
Poor Kel. Poor Kel, honestly. You must be an absolute pain to live with at the moment.
Fee would be the same, mate. She's got to live with you. You're insufferable. All us Hortons are.
Remember, you can sign up today and get $10 off your first purchase. Just visit liquorland.com.au. Please drink responsibly. T's and C's apply. See online for details. Okay, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to the official, unofficial podcast of the Melbourne Demons. That poem from Johnny English, great stuff. Absolutely love that. His son Jack, who's a loyal listener of the show, sent it in. Thanks a lot for that, mate. And just love seeing the interaction with all the supporters. Over the weekend on Saturday, the phone was absolutely running hot, and I was trying to get back to all the people that had messaged into the Debrief Instagram and Facebook, and absolutely loving the interaction with different people. Love seeing all the homes in Melbourne at the moment just being dressed up with Melbourne merch and paint and whatever they can find their hands on, and some absolute incredible banners being erected as well. It's great to see. There's a real spirit in the city that we're carrying at the moment as the boys try and obviously do the job on the road and bring the cup home to Melbourne. So thanks a lot to Jack for sending that in. And please just continue to send through your videos and your photos and whatever, and I'll do my little bit to share them. Boys, what'd you think of that? Benny?
So good.
Scotty, you loved it?
Yeah. It was stirring, wasn't it? It was stirring. What was that word you used? Cockles. Yeah, got me in the cockles.
Warming of the cockles.
Yeah, warm my cockles. Yeah, definitely. Whatever the hell that means.
You guys are ridiculous. Just a quick one. Toff's had to go, which is absolutely fine. So I think we've done the hour with him, or the 50 minutes, so we appreciate his time.
So we have another hour to go then, which I've got plenty of material for.
Jeez, okay. Well, let's get stuck into some social responses, boys.
I'm sweating in the car, boys.
That's okay. We don't care.
Put your air conditioner on.
I've turned it off. Will's out here. You should see it. Will's gone and put his Zurich Melbourne flag out and put it in the ground. He's riding this wave as much as what I am. He got physically sick in the game and got that nervous when I was screaming at the TV. He was a mess, poor old Will, because he's unfortunately inherited his old man's stupidness. And then Kelly, who's been berating me for the last 2 weeks, and I don't know why she thinks I've been bad, but she was as nervous as hell. She was riding the waves. She's no longer a Carlton supporter. She's red and blue now. So it's exciting, isn't it? It's that one hurdle we wanted to get to, and we've been talking about it for so long, haven't we, Benny? Like, we're in a fucking grand final. It hasn't really sunk in for me yet.
Benny,
I don't know why.
I can tell. I mean, I feel like this is a counselling session for you more so than
mate,
else.
This is therapy. This is cathartic.
I feel like it is. I really do feel like it is. I mean, I'm maybe not qualified, and maybe not 80s. Maybe 80s.
Kelly's a trained mental health professional, so I can go and sit on her couch later tonight. But
because you'd be an interesting case study for her, wouldn't you?
I think I'd be well equipped with that. But I was just, I don't know. I was talking through all the forums. I was on the phone to 80 so many times. 80's like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Stop
like, get over
me.
it.
It's not get over it. More just like
chill.
I loved it, and it was more just like, Scott, take this week, take this break to
I couldn't take the
reset.
excitement of it though. Like, I couldn't take the excitement. I think the disappointment side of things was what was weighing on me. I was just running on pure adrenaline. So it was so good. And it's the same. It's the connections that I've made with you boys through the debrief, all my old schoolmates that are reaching out, like Michael Tay and Dave Bell, and then Simo, my mate Simo O'Brien, he's not even a Melbourne supporter, and he's been riding a wave with me. He's actually worried about me. He messaged me yesterday. He goes, I'm fucking worried for you, big fella. You got 2 weeks. I'm not as nervous this week as what I was last, because I hate Geelong. Everyone knows I hate Geelong. So, I don't know. I think I'll be nervous next week. I don't want to buy into it. I think 80's right. You've got to take this week off to give yourself a bit of a break.
You sound like a bag of nerves right now, mate.
Yeah, you sound very nervous. I was going to say,
I'm not nervous.
You sound nervous.
No, I'm not.
Said the most nervous person in the room.
No, I'm not. I'm all right at the minute. I was 10 times worse than this last week. So.
Oh my God, you're so funny.
Can you send me a video of when you are nervous? Because I want to see what the difference is between then and now.
No, it's terrible. No one wants.
No, I want to see it. I'd love to see it.
I'll get Kelly. I'll put the GoPro on the wall for the granny.
Yeah, please do, Scotty. We'd love to see your reactions.
I want to ride the waves with you.
Oh, no, I agree. I think it'd be great. Make for great content.
But you've seen me at the footy, Aid. I'm the worst person that goes.
Oh, you're disgraceful. So when we lost to GWS...
I was abusive in the first quarter. I was abusing all their players when they went near it. And I think, and it comes from, and Jules listens to this, it comes from Mum. Mum's the worst too. She abuses players and carries on. You and Dad are a bit more level-headed, but I get nasty. I said some things that I should never say out loud in that first quarter. But
no wonder Will was so upset, because he's probably hearing things that never come out of your mouth before.
I wasn't that. I don't know. Probably it was. I can't remember.
Scotty, it's all good. Just take it all in. Now let's sit back and indulge, and let's
social responses.
Yeah, let's hear from the faithful what they've got to say, because of course we are one big happy bruised family, soon to be. What would
don't say it. Shush.
What would the word be, Benny?
Don't say we are about to, because we're not yet.
Okay. Yeah, no, we're not yet. There's one to go. All right. Okay, I'm going to shut up then, Scott. John Walsh. So John, a shout out. He's a great man. And one of the better Melbourne supporters I've met over the journey, boys. Love this bloke. So he said we need to give a shout out to Lord Nev on the podcast. Completely forgotten about his whole journey to a grand final. Has given his all to the club, just like Nathan Jones. So I just wanted to make mention of John, who made special mention of Nev. I know I brought it up off the top of the show, but just wanted to reiterate that this is a whole of Melbourne quest for the premiership at the moment. And Max Gawn summed it up so well when he said that he's not only playing footy with the 22 on the field, he's playing for the whole entire group, and referenced a few players after the game. The next one, Clint Boyle. This was his favourite moment of the game. Track ripping it from the Cats defender, setting off, selling candy, then nailing the goal. It set the tone. It certainly did. And not only was it a great move, Benny, it was Radigalea that he ripped the ball out of, who was a big man when you think about it.
Yeah, it was really brilliant. I loved it. Cozzy helped too. It was nice. Love that sort of thing.
He's Tarzan.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable.
Plays like our mate Jane.
So Rowan Milligan, this was his favourite moment. He said, when we didn't let Hawkins and Myers score, even though we were 50 points up, it proves we are still hungry and keep wanting more. Second efforts are second to none with this group. So it comes back to the point that you made, Benny, that all these selfless acts, no matter what the scoreboard is, really sums up where the group's at the moment.
For sure. And I think that's the thing that we need to be focusing on, is that we're not just smashing teams by kicking goals. It's we're restricting them from scoring. We're doing defensive acts, and we don't necessarily need to be doing them. It's a whole of team mentality and drive that has got me confident about the grand final. So, yeah, I agree 100% with that.
I love this one from David Patterson. He says, Big Ben Brown's clean hands early. We seemed to settle when we realised that we had a big forward who was absolutely on. He was on. We spoke about Bowie and his awesome start to the game. Of course, our star-studded midfield were great as soon as the ball was bounced as well. But it was probably those lesser lights that we were looking at, Benny, and hoping that they would be able to set the tone themselves from an individual perspective. Ben Brown's hands were just enormous all night. He had the 4 contested marks, which is massive in the modern game. You're lucky to get 1 or 2 these days, the way it goes. Aaron Norton's one of those players who's consistently taking contested grabs. But Ben Brown, we've said it before, and I think we even said it a couple of weeks ago, he's moving as well as he ever has. I know at North Melbourne there was a period there where he's one of the most dominant forwards in the comp. Is he winding the clock back, or is this a different Ben Brown?
I think he is winding the clock back a little bit. I mean, he did take contested marks at North. I just don't think we saw it as much, because when he played there during their sort of years when they were making finals, they had a pretty good midfield. He was getting the ball lace out. But I think now he's maybe changed his game a little bit. Maybe he's changed to be what Melbourne wants him to be. And I think that's why he's having success in our team. So, yeah, for me, I think, I couldn't be happier with him. I couldn't be happier with the way he's turned around his form mid-season and bought into the culture, in quotation, the culture of the club, and now system, again, in quotation marks. But, yeah, look, he's fantastic again. And, yeah, I don't think there needs to be any more said about him.
Yeah, for sure. He's been great. Dave Keane. My favourite was when we rested our stars and we were still kicking goals and defending well. Made me really appreciate our depth and effort from the whole team. It was a pretty funny moment, wasn't it, boys, where they were sitting there on the bench and Clary had his hands on his head, just relaxed and almost yawning, and then you had Gorney having a bit of a chin wag with Track, and then you had Stephen May in the back just taking a breather and obviously subbed out of the game. He had a little cheeky grin on his face. But the thing I found really funny, boys, having gone back and watched the replay, when Goody decided, all right, it's time to get the 5 All-Australians on the pine and rest them up for a fortnight's time, it was Jake Lever. So all the other boys were just completely relaxed, chilling out, having a bit of a laugh. We're up by 80 points against Geelong. But Jake Lever was sitting there going, come on, boys, let's keep going. And he was like gesticulating and, stay focused. And it was almost like they turned around and they said to Jake, just relax, mate. It's all good. And that's what I love about Jake Lever, that he's always on the front foot. He's always trying to set things up. He's always squawking and yelling and trying to keep people's heads in the game. But that was a moment where it was just like, Jake, just relax, pal. It's all good. We've got this. So I found that really funny.
But it's habitual for him. Like he does it out of habit, which is great. And as far as I'm concerned, he can keep doing it because he's a gun. So
he's my favourite. I love him.
He's a gun.
We could have taken him off 15 minutes into the third. It was done.
Nah, we needed to rub it in a bit more.
We had a point to prove. I think that's why Goody left them out there, because I think he had a point to prove, and I think that was important.
Yeah.
Personally.
Same. Bury them. Absolutely bury them. I love this one from Phil Kimber, and then I'll get to the last couple, which were my two favourites, boys. But this one's great. He says, 16:47 left in the third, and Gorney has just nailed a goal on the run from outside 50. I then cried for the next 10 minutes as I knew that we had sunk the Cats and we're in our first grand final since 2000. Phil, love it. Similar feeling in my household. Similar feeling in a lot of households. Once I kind of knew the result, boys, it really started to set in. The emotions are running wild. So that's a great one from Phil. But the last couple ones to wrap up with the social responses from the faithful. Ben Kimpton, 10 minutes to go in the third. Big Max has just kicked 4 in 10 minutes. 70 points up. Ball goes over the top of him and Lever into the centre wing, into the hands of the speedster Rowan. Big Maxi sprints 50 metres to absolutely drive him into the turf. I get excited thinking about it. It was an incredible moment, boys. And it probably is my highlight of the game as well.
Oh, easily.
When I saw him just tearing away, just running like a man possessed down the wing, the first thing I thought to myself was, there's no world where he's going to catch Gary Rowan. Gary Rowan is a speedster, as Ben said. So I thought, look at Big Maxi. He's putting the jets on. He's having a crack. It epitomises what we've been speaking about in the last 5-10 minutes, the buy-in from every player. He had no right to even get to the contest. And then the best thing about that whole highlight in that moment, Gary Rowan kind of drops his legs a little bit at the last second, hoping that a 208-centimetre bloke is going to come over the top and it's going to be high. Max was so clever the way that he bent down and ensured that he didn't cop him high. He knew that Gary Rowan was going to go for that little cheap move. So, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. The bloke's just kicking goals out of his ass, and then he's going on a barnstorming run down the wing to chase down one of the quicker blokes in the Geelong team. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. And this is the last one, boys. Stephen Nicola. Right when the Cats leader was epitomising the entitled sook behaviour of Geelong FC, the boys rallied together to laugh in Selwood's face as we played our brand and kicked the sealer. It's as if they collectively ripped the Geelong monkey off our back that's plagued us for decades. Stephen Nicola, thank you very much. And I definitely enjoyed that Joel Selwood moment and the irony of it, boys. He dived. He fucking dived. You've been doing it your whole career, pal. Shut up. Sit down. We're on our way to a flag. That's it. That's the social responses right there. Some ripping stuff from the fans.
They were pretty good.
They were awesome, mate. The supporters are in great form, of course, after what we did on Friday.
They're certainly better when we win. I tell you what, there were some dark times when a few years ago we weren't winning all the time. So I remember some of those supporter responses. They did sometimes garner some fiery responses from us too, I think. Remember?
Yeah, particularly you. You used to go off the hammer at a few supporters, which wasn't always fair. But that's right.
There's still a few, mate. Like there's some dickhead on the
Here we go.
forum that put up a photo of Oscar McDonald and was taking a dig at Oscar McDonald when we're in the grand final. Like,
It's pretty childish.
You can't see any positivity in what's going on in the work. Like, if you can't take the beauty of your team getting into a grand final, you have to go back and pot a bloke like that. You may as well go and follow Geelong. Like, that guy really pissed me off. So I went him on the forum. So did everyone else. But he's within his right to do what he wants, but he's a dickhead. So I just want positivity this week. Like, this is we're in uncharted territory, boys. Like, and everyone listening, we are like, I was too young to get in the hype of 2000 because and you couldn't, because Essendon were like, we never thought we were going to win that game. There was no chance. This is going to be the best 2 weeks and the most nervous I've ever been in my life, and I'm just going to ride the wave of it. I mean, I think you're talking about the bye week. I think it's a good break for us, because you talk about Max's game and him having to back that up. He's got 2 weeks now to prepare to do it again. And a lot of people are saying, you played your grand final last week. Well, the Bulldogs basically did the same thing to Port as what we did. So the 2 weeks makes it null and void. And yeah, it would have been nice to get them straight away after a win like we had, and they've been on the road and everything like that. But the 2 weeks just resets the mind. Like, they get a week of just relaxing. Perth's going to be delicious all week over there. They're going to have
delicious
weather. They'll go play golf. They'll go to all the cafes. They'll hang out down Scarborough or Leighton Beach or wherever they might be staying, and they'll soak it all up. Yeah, they'll be missing their families and everything like that. But you think about it, they've been in lockdown for just as long as what we have. They've got an opportunity to reset. The Bulldogs have got to fly into Perth, then they've got to quarantine. They've got a harder road into this grand final than what we do. So I reckon Max resets. Imagine if he lights it up like that again. And there's no reason why he can't.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why Clayton Oliver can't have a 4-quarter game. There's no reason why Cozzy Pickett can't have a 4-quarter game. Like, there's plenty of blokes. Like, Freda wasn't his best. Tom McDonald had a couple of patches where he was good, but there's blokes that were a little bit off that get their opportunity to shine. And that ground, the way they set that ground up, it's sensational. So
yeah,
we just absorb it now. We listen to 80 interviews and we're ready.
Yep.
Scotty,
you go, Benny.
I think the other thing I was going to say is we have this, like, nice little omen that Max gave us before the game when he smiled like an absolute psychopath during the national anthem. I remember I was watching it and I saw that, and I said to Will, who I was watching, I said that's either really, really good or really, really bad. But I'm leaning towards really, really good, because he has this look in his eye, and it looks like he's ready to rip something apart. And in almost like a serial killer sense, to be honest, it kind of scared me a little bit. But this guy, there was an article on the AFL website that mentioned it. And they said, like, there was a little smile came across his face during the national anthem, but it gave no indication of what the talismanic Melbourne skipper was about to unleash on the Cats. And if he does that again, I'm going to be pretty happy, to be honest. That little smile just really set me at ease.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The confidence of it, though, like, we've never seen anything like this. Like, what we did, like, I said this to Richie, 80's best mate and my mate. I said to him midweek, we've got our little D wins group that we've had all season. And I rang Rick.
That's a cute name. It's a cute name.
I rang the group. We often ring the group on video chat, and Rick was the only one that picked up. And I said to him, mate, I've got it. He goes, how are you feeling? I go, I'm fucking nervous, but I also feel like we're absolutely going to tear them an absolute new one. I said, it's all set up for us. I said, I've got this deep feeling down inside that we're going to smash them. And when it happened, it was just the ecstasy of it all. It was just phenomenal. I hate Geelong. We owed them. They don't respect us. Selwood sooked up. We wiped the smile off that dickhead Smith's face, who had the opportunity to come to Melbourne, and he said he wanted to go to a premiership team. It's just set up. Every omen, everything. So now it's our turn. And I said before we started this, imagine if it was Bulldogs' drought-winning year and it was Melbourne's this year.
off its head. And now now that it's not, they had theirs in 2016. It's our turn. Fuck everyone else. This is our turn to do it. Yeah. And the boys know that. It's the first time I've ever thought that a team was actually doing it for their supporters. Like, it's a throwaway comment. These blokes have all bought in. Like, they are Melbourne through and through.
Yep, I agree, Scott. I think the collective buy-in from everyone has been one of the trademarks of Melbourne when they've been on the road. Almost every press conference, whether it be the younger blokes like Petty and Sparrow, whether it be Gorney or Petrarca or Oliver or Jake Lever and the leaders, from everyone all the way through, even the assistant coaches, they continue to hark back to the fact that they're in a privileged position. They've got an opportunity in front of themselves to etch themselves into folklore, and they always talk about the supporters and the connection. And the sea of red and blue on Friday night was just a real sight to behold, boys. Marker was there going absolutely nuts and having the time of his life, and there was some great footage of him when Max Gawn snapped that one around the corner from the ruck, and you can see Tom Marquezani with the hat off just going absolutely ballistic and just reveling in what was one of the greatest wins in our history. And the thing that really hit home for me, boys, and I've been a little bit critical of this guy over the journey, only because there are a lot of handbags and there was a lot of infighting through the dark years, and it was a real tumultuous period. The club and their supporters were, I wouldn't say we were divided. I think we've always been a unified front. We've always rocked up every week and believed that maybe one day we'd get our turn, when we probably, deep down probably never thought that would actually happen. It seemed like we were just in a vicious cycle, a hellhole of misery. But Gary Lyon is someone that, I don't know, I thought could have done a little bit more for our club when we were at that low ebb. But I don't know, just the way that he's spoken throughout this season, the emotion that I've seen on the couch, and then to see Gary acting like a little kid at 12, he was just so giddy. He was, the way that he looked up to Max Gawn, and he was very emotional, and he got around some of the boys in the change rooms after the game. To see the emotion on someone that had a red-hot crack for us and was a champion player and an All-Australian and a skipper at the club, and just fell short on a few occasions and didn't get the opportunity to win a drought breaker for us, to see him just marvelling at the excellence of Max Gawn and all the other troops in the D's outfit, like, it kind of really hit home for me. Just the swirling emotion around the supporter base at the moment. And the other thing that I really, really enjoyed was just hearing from a few of the supporters that were at the ground that were texting me on the debrief account and just telling me that they felt like the crowd was very much a Melbourne crowd, predominantly us, if not 70% plus, 80% plus in the stadium. People really rallying behind us, completely outnumbering the Geelong supporters. It feels like there's a real wave of momentum and destiny happening at the moment. I'm a firm believer that this is a window of opportunity over the next 5 to 6 years. We'd love to get it done in a fortnight's time, and then we'd love to see Melbourne back at the MCG doing it for us in the flesh and getting that opportunity to be there. And I'm not bitter at all about those people that are going to be at the grand final. I'm thankful for this club and everything that we've been through as supporters, and I'm really thankful that people are going to get an opportunity to go to that game. It'd be easy to sulk and sook and be disappointed, and I've had text messages from opposition fans saying, it's great, but isn't it just horrible that you can't be at the game, 80? Oh, it sucks. Well, do you know what? I'm past that. I've accepted that a long, long time ago. I'm absolutely delighted for every single Melbourne supporter that gets the privilege of being there and yelling and screaming their hearts out for us and the boys trying to bring the cup back from the west, back to the east to Melbourne. I think there's a lot of romanticism behind it, and I know deep down that if we get it done this year, boys, we'll get our time in the sun at the G sometime soon in the future. So that's where my head's at. I'm just so proud to be a part of this football club.
For sure. I echo that 100%. I think that, I've been over in LA, I guess, for 2 years now, and I knew this year that with COVID, I was never going to be able to come back for a grand final. I knew it was going to be prohibitively expensive and also just a very long time commitment. So for me, I was at peace with it before the season started. I honestly thought that we had
halfway through the year, I thought we were a pretty good shot at making the grand final. So I was looking into options, but it became apparent that it was just not going to be able to happen. And I think you're right. Like, we should be happy for those people. We wish those people I wish that they are going to scream their heart out and lose their voice and going to be able to see something that no Melbourne supporter has seen in the flesh for 57 years. So I think that's a terrific sentiment, 80. Personally, I think that's the way we should all be looking at it. And I have no ill feelings about not being able to be there. I just would love to see us raise the cup, even if it is on TV at 6 a.m.
For sure. We're all in it together. I've often said it before, and I was, again, texting people over the weekend that were just in raptures and telling me all their stories about how, they're third or fourth generation, and, we talk about the curse being passed down from family to family. But in all seriousness, one of the reasons why I genuinely love the Melbourne Football Club is, and I've said this a few times on the podcast, it's all the shit that we've had to go through. It's all of the drama. It's sticking fat. It's going to the Sunday twilight games, 12,000 people being there. It's raining. It's shit conditions. We don't kick a goal until halfway through the third quarter. Down at Geelong, witnessing all those thrashings. Thinking that the very soul of the club had been ripped out of it during those really dark times under Mark Neeld. And yet the one constant that I always talk about is the fact that the supporters just stuck by. And they're like, well, you got to stick by, because one day it might turn. And if it turns, it's going to be a lot sweeter if we can actually execute and get there and win a drought breaker. So I know, we look at other teams, the big powerhouse teams like Collingwood and West Coast and Sydney and all their success, and maybe there's been a bit of bitterness and jealousy over the journey. I wouldn't change any of this shit that we've been through, because ultimately it will make it sweeter, but it's actually what's defined us as a supporter base. And it is a part of our identity, but it's also a part of hopefully going through a process that sees us get it in a couple of weeks, knowing that, I say it all the time, no supporter base has had to put up with the amount of crap that we have. So I love that they have an opportunity to wipe that slate clean, to get rid of all that pain and suffering. Some people might think we are insane having gone through all this, but the one thing that has never stopped has been the support from the supporters. Like, the Demon Army got the friggin' award again for the best cheer squad in the land. They get it every single year. They've been there since... they've been there since the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, some of those terrible decades, all the way through to the really dark times from 2007 to 2013. And they continued to rock up every week. Like, I marvel at the support from the supporters and how everyone's just stuck together through it. So I'm galvanised by them. I'm galvanised by the atmosphere that I saw on Friday night coming through my TV. And I cannot wait. I'm buzzing. There is zero bitterness in me about not actually being there in the flesh in 12 days' time. I'm just so ecstatic and so excited to see the sea of red and blue when they walk out in front of the Doggies. The Optus Stadium is a brilliant stadium. We'd love it to be at the G, but for the grand final to be at that terrific, magnificent Coliseum that we've been to, Benny, it's perfect. And the walk into the Swan River, it sucks, but the romanticism of bringing it back home is everything that I'm riding at the moment. And it's been a season of adversity. So many curveballs with COVID. It'll be a thoroughly deserved flag if we can get it done.
For sure. And I think the other thing I just want to say is there's someone who, in my opinion, like, even if they weren't playing, did deserve to be there to watch it and won't be, very sadly, and that's Nathan Jones. We kind of talked about him earlier in the podcast and how Max Gawn, I don't think Max Gawn would be the leader he is today without Nathan Jones' influence. So he's obviously headed home to be with his wife for the birth of their twins, which I think is the right decision for him. I think that his chances of playing were probably pretty slim. And I was one of the people who romantically really wanted him to be the sub in the grand final. But I think the decision to go home epitomises him as a Melbourne person. He was if this is the end, if this is the last season that Nathan Jones is a Melbourne player, he'll always be a Melbourne person, and he was selfless to the end. Witnessing his growth and as a leader and his improved maturity and professionalism was just something that I've really enjoyed. I think he's one of the better captains we've had in a very long time, and he was a captain through some incredibly dark years. I think him being in Perth would have put the club and himself in a pretty difficult position, and there would have been a lot of media around it. I think making the early decision and the right decision to go home is another thing where you say, well, look how selfless that is, because you know how badly he would have wanted to at least be there. I think for a long time he was our shining light. He was the player that we put our hopes on. We thought, well, as long as he's with us, we've got some hope. There've been games where he's put us on his back and drawn us over the line or made us at least competitive. But I think one of the traits of a good leader, in my opinion, is when you see talent and other stars come in, letting those people shine. And I think he's done that with an air of humility and again selflessness that I didn't know that he had in him. And to the end, he's been professional and a true clubman, like I said earlier. And I think, Max Gawn sort of summed it up really well for me when he said, I guess the way that Max remembers him and the way that I will remember him is that not because he was there during the dark years and he stuck by us, but I think for changing the club. And I do agree with that. I think that if you ask Max Gawn, he wouldn't be this influential figure in our club without Nathan Jones's influence. So I just wanted to say, on my behalf, thank you to Nathan Jones. You'll always be one of my favourite Melbourne players, and I think that you're a deserved holder of the games record for Melbourne and also the best and fairest you've won.
Yeah, well said, Benny. Before we do go out, just on Jonesy quickly, very exciting time in his life as well. His wife's giving birth to twins, so they'll have a family of 4 as well. So look, for Nathan, it is devastating that he's not going to be a part of the 22. He's not going to be there in the flesh in Perth, but if we were to get it done for Jonesy, then what a wonderful time in his life. And another person I think we need to recognise before we do go, Scotty, is Neil Danaher. There were some great shots from the Melbourne account before the game. Neil decked out in red and blue, preparing himself for the prelim on Friday night. Again, just a person that's close to our hearts. We've had some great Melbourne people over the journey. Neil's certainly one of them. He's got an Australian legacy, let alone a Melbourne Demons legacy. He's very fondly loved, and God, if you ever wanted it to do it for anyone as inspirational as Neil, he'd almost be top of the tree for me, given everything that he's done as a human and just his contribution to society. So I'm definitely thinking about Neil coming into this fortnight as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've got personal connections with the Danaher family. Went to school with the boys, and I was very close with Loz. So, that got me. A lot of my neutral friends on Facebook had been signing a petition to get him over to Perth for the granny. So, and they're a beautiful family, Janny and Neil. They're a great couple, and the adversity that bloke's been thrown, but I mean, we couldn't get it done for him against friggin' Collingwood, but surely we can get it done for him on the big stage. Words can't justify the power of that bloke, and he's a phenomenal human. I mean, lucky enough to know him through my younger years, just outside school, and he's a daunting figure. He's just such a good bloke. I think the backbone of this footy club through those 2000s, I mean, unlucky or not unlucky, but that was the best football I'd seen us play up until now. So he left a legacy at the club, and the fight that he's got in him to still be standing, and I know he's losing his speech and everything like that. And Jonesy's a big story as well. I think Neil Danaher is a pretty big inspiration to the footy club. So I think the boys are drawing from everything. There's so many outlets outside of the actual playing group that they're doing this for. I mean, I think we're coming up to 200 and something days being locked in our houses. We've nearly spent a whole year of our lives stuck indoors and stuck behind these curfews and all the bullshit that's going on. So, yeah, I'm loving it. I mean, if we didn't have this, I don't know how I'd be. I think I'd be protesting in the city. I'd be doing something stupid. I don't think I'd get to that point, but I don't know. I know our uncle was having a go at me about some of my posts on Facebook, but I think we're so lucky. We're so fortunate that we're and so are the Doggy supporters. There's two main groups here in Melbourne, and we're not huge supporter bases. We're not the Hawthorns or the Essendons or the Collingwoods. We're two minority groups in Melbourne, and suck shit to everyone else that doesn't get to ride the wave. But we've got a group of people that have jumped hard on the Melbourne bandwagon. My best mate was at the game on Friday night, Tommy Foster, and he FaceTimed me and he just goes, mate, it's all Melbourne. The town's here for Melbourne. They didn't want Geelong to win, and I don't know how big the following would be over for the Bulldogs. I don't think it'd be much, to be honest, in Perth, of all places. The only thing they share in common is the West, but that's the only thing. So I'm just ride this wave this week and try and switch off and not think footy and just bury myself in some work this week. Come next Sunday, I'll be fully nervous and shocked and shell-shocked. I'll be ringing you and everyone will be worried about me. I'll probably go buy a defibrillator during the week because that might be much needed. And many of the other supporters out there that are listening are in the same boat as me. I know I'm not the only one. There's fucking tons of us. I mean,
Yes.
You say you're cool, calm and collected, but you're deep down, you're shitting yourself, and so are you, Benny.
No, I'm pretty calm at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, but
maybe that's because I'm really, really arrogant about how good we are.
And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I take what you boys are saying. Like, I'm not a big game goer. Like, I'm quite comfortable sitting at home and watching the footy because I am a dickhead when I do go, and I do get emotional. I do get caught up in it. I'm happy to go and spray people around me and really get involved in it. So I'm not the right person to be in the MCC because I'd get banned for life. But I'm happy. I don't care. There's no hollow feeling that I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be with, hopefully, we don't know what's going to happen here in Victoria, but I'm going to be with my son. My son has bought into this stupidness of what I am, and he's emotional, and he's a chip off the old block. He looks like me. He's diehard D. He wore his Melbourne jumper.
Poor kid.
All weekend. So I say bring it on. It doesn't worry me. I was in Bali. We booked a holiday in Bali in 2018. And everyone's like, you're a fucking dickhead. Why would you book a Bali holiday when you're in a prelim? You're going to go to the grand final and you got a chance to actually go and attend it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to share it with anyone, I was going to share it with my best mate, Yogi, and his wife, Sammy, our best friends. And I was going to be able to enjoy a grand final with them. And it's the same again. I get to share it with Kel. I get to share it with Will. And I get to share it with Chloe, who's only one. So I think everyone that's at home needs to just embrace that. I mean, if for Victorians as such, like, just hug the person next to you. If they're a Bulldog supporter, if you married a Bulldog supporter, you're fucked. So just boot them out of the house. But just ride it. I mean, love it. We're there. We deserve it. We deserve it more than any other supporter in the whole AFL. We deserve it more than St Kilda because they're irrelevant. Let's just ride the wave. We should be just so proud, but it's not done. Job's not done. No. I'm confident but still shitting myself, and I'm sure next week when we chat I'll be completely different again. But
yes, just
eat it up, enjoy the weather, just embrace it, ladies and gentlemen, because this footy club is very, very special. Very special.
It is, Scotty. We'll leave it on that note. It's been a pleasure as always. Never a chore, Scotty Horton. Absolutely love it. Benny, any final thoughts? Just a quick one for us.
No, none at all. None at all. I'm very happy. I'm nice and calm, contrary to Scott's opinion, and I'm really, really looking forward to a couple of weeks' time. We've got to do another pod next
100%.
week.
Yeah, 100%.
Just like we're doing like double preview, maybe something like that.
Yeah. We'll definitely do double preview. Got a bit of content lined up.
We'll
hopefully
drop of the debrief.
Huh?
A double drop of the debrief.
Double drop of the debrief. It'll be good fun. I've got a few things in the pipeline. I'm trying to talk to
I'm excited for that.
Some of the greats of the club.
Are they locked in?
No, I'm going to reach out this arvo after we do this.
Give him a taste. Give him a taste.
There's some big names.
No, it's better if it's in suspense, I think.
There's some big names.
I love suspense, Benny. Have a look at me.
Yeah,
I know.
2 weeks for the biggest game of our whole. We're not even playing. It's stupid. We're just.
There's some big names coming, so I'll look to start locking them in as soon as I put this podcast up, boys. So very excited about what's to come for the Melbourne faithful. Absolutely love your work, boys. I probably don't say it enough. You're always excellent, 10 out of 10. People really enjoy, confiding in us as emotional supporters themselves, and it's thoroughly enjoyable to talk to you guys every week. And I love your work, but there's one more to go. There's one more to go. There's one more to go. Okay, I'll leave you to it.
Yep.
Go D's.
Go D's. See you, boys. And it's great that you didn't talk about golf, so I'm going to end meeting for all right now, so it's not going to happen. See you later. Bye-bye. Got out of that one nicely. Big thanks to all the Primo subscribers. As I said, I'm working in the background on a whole heap of different content ideas leading into the granny, some big names. Won't let the cat out of the bag just yet. Got to make sure I lock them all in. But been sent, I think 6, 7, maybe even 8 different contacts that I'm trying to lock in for chats in the next week or so. So keep an eye out for them on our socials. I'll preview them. I'll put some social posts up for people that want to ask some of these Melbourne people some questions before I do go on air and interview them. And if you haven't subscribed to the premium content, because there'll be plenty of premium content coming your way over the next 12 days, then make sure you head over to thehorde.com and go through the sign-up process. Annual 30% discount, monthly only $5 a month. And as I say, it'll support this podcast. Continue to let me do what I do with all the lads. And also you'll be able to get access to that additional content as well. It's been a long pod, but it's been a very enjoyable pod. And God, it's just an absolute dream at the moment. Keep writing it, keep supporting, and I'll be back on the airways before you even know it. Go D's.